Well, hello everybody. Happy Friday. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter weekend. And I know some of us who watch the show do certainly not have pleasant memories of these times as well. So I just want to let you guys all know I've been thinking about you all, sending you lots of love and lots of blessings over this time. And for those of us who are sharing good memories with our families and getting together, I hope you're having a fantastic time as well. Over here, it's in the sleepy little village has come to life where I live, so I'm hibernating. Anyway, it's really good to see you all again. Thank you. And I apologize for last week. We were supposed to have Lira on last week, but I had a family emergency that needed to be taken care of. So she's on this week. And as we know by now, everything is by divine timing. So welcome back, Lira. How are you?
I am well. I'm doing okay. I am grateful to you and all of Jess's shows. They are giving me puzzle pieces. They're validating my memories, how I've gotten out of it. Just her explaining things like one by one is making a huge difference for me on my
Yeah.
life and then my daughter's life too.
Wow.
Cannot thank you guys enough. Jess, I cannot thank you. Thank you. Bless you all. Bless you guys.
I
I
think,
wanted
I
to
really
go in
think,
a little.
sorry, I want to just comment on that as well, if you don't mind. I just think I love what you're saying there because I think it's such an important time. You know, there's so many people um, that have been programmed, triggered, whatever it's called, to awake at this time from their sleeper state. So whether it's a sleeper soldier going into full action, which honestly, when we're looking at this whole transgenderism and all of that stuff going on now, to me, that's what it's not so much wars and guns and things that could still be coming. But I think right now that this is what they're doing. It's that whole mindset of that tide that just pulls people across. So I'm very happy. I too am very, very grateful for Jessie. And for those of you who haven't watched our interviews this past week with Jessie just on the topic, I highly recommend you do. And last week as well. We did two last week and two on Wednesday this week, where we're doing a deep dive into the military programming and the training and the bases and the spiritual realms that these child soldiers have been weaponized to operate in. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and being revealed now on both Aquarius Rising Africa and Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. So on both channels. So I want to really say, and it's great to have you back, Lira, because for those of you who don't know, Lira's been on the show a couple of times before. She was trained by the Russians, the child soldier, to be as a child to be a double agent. Um, Obviously, when she was a child. So your stories that you've already told thus far are fascinating. And again, I want to say, if you guys haven't listened to Lyra's previous interviews, please do so, because it obviously gives you an insight into her life and her experience as well. But anyway, so today we are going to be talking, amongst other stuff as well, about the dark side of the Ukrainian war, because I think all of us agree that this war is horrific and unnecessary. And I don't care which side of the table you're sitting on, no war is ever okay. And they will always use it as an excuse for something else. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say on that, Lira. Over to you.
Yeah, uh, thank you. I will go back and I will recap, or actually, I will go later after we talk about the Ukraine. I will go back and I will tell you guys some of the training that they did on me in the hospital so you can understand how I'm seeing things in the spirit. They reinforced it, trained us for it. Um, So don't be alarmed if it's something very different and new to you, how people see in the spirit. But it's normal. And it's one of the gifts, spiritual gifts also. At least it mentioned in the Bible several times there are seers who just see in the spirit. So this is one of the things that God showed me. I was just praying and poof, here it comes. And what I saw, they pull up the first picture. So there are many catacombs in Odessa, Ukraine, actually throughout Ukraine, period. But in Odessa, there's a great deal of catacombs there, and they just go out through Ukraine and into Russia. So in some of the pictures you will see, yeah. So what I saw was an entrance. Yeah, let's start here. Into one of the basement rooms right there. And in the room, similar to that room, I saw children no more than 4 years old, and they were hanging on meat hooks, just alive, barely breathing, but alive. And they were hanging on hooks. There were maybe 4 or 5 of them that were hanging. There were piles of them on the floor in the corners already dead. And then there were 3 bassinets with children, infants, and they too were barely breathing, just, I don't know, the drug. They were alive. All of them were alive. And what happened was, Mrs. Clinton, we'll say that, she walked in just like, head down, walked into this room. She had a couple guys behind her, her bodyguards, and she wanted to see those children firsthand. And what the children were used for, to go back down to some of the other pictures, the beautiful rooms. When the other countries that are trying or helping Ukraine, yeah, hold it there. Actually, go down one. And I didn't know all of this until I saw this in the spirit and then started looking up. So right there, yep, that picture. There's all these countries that are coming with Russia in fancy places like that, and they're making treaties. They're talking about how can we get in on the action in some ways, and then just how can they help them. But when they do that, in order to complete that treaty, what happens is, go back to that one table, just up one. They will say, okay, we're going to help you like this. And then Ukrainians will go, well, in order to seal this deal, we are going to have a meal. And they're sitting in a fancy room like that. They're given a menu. And on that menu will be different children, different ages, and different body parts on that menu. So basically you pick what you want, what age, what part of the child flesh you want, and they're going to make a meal out of that, out of the children's flesh, and you will eat it. So that's what's going to seal the deal that the contract, that the treaty that they're making with Ukraine, that they're going to, all this corruption that is happening right now with this war, everybody wants in on the action, and this is how they do it, by eating child's flesh. So what I saw in that basement where Mrs. Clinton came in, one of the children had a piece of their cheek cut out. Another child had their liver cut out, just a chunk. Another one had a genital piece cut out. And they're hanging there alive, and just blood, they're bleeding to death, but they're keeping them alive in case, for the next person, they can use another piece of flesh
that makes a lot of sense in terms of what you're saying about keeping them alive, because on previous interviews as well that we've had with Jesse, when it comes to these spirit parties, and not just Jesse, a lot of people have, and a few people have mentioned that, is that in order for them to cannibalize, the meat needs to be alive. And that's what they're obviously doing. I mean, even when we're talking about these spirit parties where she was mentioning pregnant mothers being cannibalized, obviously while they are still alive. I mean, this is horrific. But I believe that. I do believe that would be most certainly what's going on. Wow.
It was so heartbreaking and so gross. I was just biting my knuckles, like, because seeing it almost firsthand, you know, the spirit, just a piece of their flesh just not there, and they're bleeding to death, but still alive. And then the option of having the infants too, and they're upstairs sitting in that fancy room, laughing, drinking, as like, you know, everything is nice and dandy, and yet you have these children right there. And well, we know about Mrs. Clinton. She's just the witch of the witches, and she wanted to see it firsthand. Like, and I asked the Lord, like, how do I pray for this? Like, what do I do with what I've just seen, witnessed? And he said, don't worry, I already have their souls, their spirit is there with me in heaven. It's just their body that is here. Like,
yeah.
Okay, I'll just take your word for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think at times like that, you know, I really do think God works in ways that we can't even understand. So maybe that is just literally the body there. The spirit has already gone home. And so, wow, crazy.
Yeah.
I'm just say that they've got like a menu and can choose whatever it wants. Makes sense. So they've obviously got fresh stock. It's just disgusting to even say that. I don't even know how to call it. Awaiting, right? And they seal their deals, obviously in this way, cannibalizing. Is there any significance to that per se? The cannibalization at this particular meeting or function, whatever it is they're doing there. Does that mean anything in particular, or is it them being their gross selves?
No. If you look at all the different cultures throughout the centuries, they all had that, right? They, if there was a special occasion or ceremony, there was always a human sacrifice, right? No matter what culture you look at, it was such a standard. And I think when Jesus in the upper room before he died, well, this is the Friday, right, before he passed and arose, but he told him, like, when you're eating the bread, think about eating it as my flesh, and then when you're drinking the wine, it's like my blood. Because in that culture, that was the narrative, the standard, the norm, right? If it was something special, somebody's flesh was being eaten, the blood was you drink the blood.
That goes back to really a lot of the early, I think, the Nordic cultures, right? If you go right back to them, and I mean, if we look right back at the Ukraine and places like that as well, that's right there. They're now part of, because isn't a big part of Ukraine are the old Vikings or something like that? So that goes right back to those old ancient Nordic cultures where there was always some kind of a blood sacrifice to appease the gods, or to do something that would make the gods happy. You're right.
Yep, and it continues.
I didn't know. I didn't think that they ate them, though. I know there was blood sacrifice, but I didn't think that they cannibalized them. Are you saying that they cannibalized them then as well?
Yeah, well, Russia has a lot of fairy tales where the babies, specifically the babies, are being cooked in this huge cattle, gordon, whatever it's called. Yeah, it's like normal fairy tales for the Russian children growing up with them.
Wow.
Really think about nightmares we were getting.
I was going to say, my gosh, that's not fairy tales, that's troll tales.
Yeah, the trolls were in there too, but yep, the Baba Yaga, it's a normal fairy tale with she was like the witch of all witches, right? And she lived in a house on chicken legs, and it just moved throughout, and if you weren't good, the child wasn't good, she was going to take, and she was going to cook you in this big old cattle and eat you up. Like normal stuff. stories.
But I mean, even if you look at the fairy tale like Hansel and Gretel, for example, you know, they go into the chocolate palace or castle, whatever it is. And I mean, you know, they're immediately in danger. So I
Yeah,
remember those fairy tales. I remember. And how the old witches were always after the children. Wow.
because
Amazing.
yeah, after coming to US, Disneyland, Disney World, right? They were coming out with all these fairy tales, hit movies, but in my mind, I'm like, I know the story, and they've totally twisted the story. Like the story is very evil, but here there's a good end. I'm like, it's like, no, there was no good end in the original fairy tales. But
Yeah,
Disneyland,
exactly.
you know, the witch it them.
Exactly.
Um,
Wow.
Speaking of children, I just wanted to mention the Ukrainian children, what's going on with them. So in Russia, USSR, every high-story building where people live communally, there's always a basement, and people would hide in those basements. So they would hide children there specifically, and then children to teenagers. There was one story that came out. There were just interviews, different. You can find all kinds of stuff, right? Interviews. Um, Two boys and an adult who was they were being interviewed, and they were talking about how they were hiding. There was over 1,000 of them in these basements, a group of children, like I said, up to teenagers. And they were there for many, many months. Somebody would bring them a pot of soup for the day for these children to eat. But they just waited until somebody told them that you could leave the place because everything, you know, was being bombed up on top. And finally, the Ukrainian soldiers went there. They knew that kids were hiding there. And they said, well, on such and such day, go ahead and walk to this little town, and there will be buses waiting for you to take you out. You know, just some freedom. And so they did, but the children walked through the night to that town. And then when they get there, it's not the Ukrainian soldiers who are waiting for them. It's the Russian soldiers with the buses who are waiting for them. And you hear this. There are many stories, many interviews, and you cannot understand what is happening, whether it's the Russians who are being nice to them or the Ukrainians who are, you know, using the children or abusing. Of course, the parents are gone. Oh, I'm not going to go there, but the regions that have been taken by Russia in Ukraine, the children on there automatically become Russian citizens. And that is against the Geneva Constitution. Well, what to do? They're still going to do it, whether children don't have a choice. They're, like I said, automatically Russians. And then they've also made it available for the Russian families to adopt the Ukrainian children, where in the past it was very difficult to adopt a child from another country, Ukraine next door. But this time, and they show Putin talking about it, where he made it very easy for the Russians to adopt those children. But not only that, you automatically, the new parent can give them new names and then new dates, date of birth. So there's no way for the parent in Ukraine, even when the parent does come up to the surface, you know, comes to terms what's happening, they've been separated from their children, is trying to look for the child. They cannot, because everything, all of their data has been changed completely. Yeah, that's just not fair. Like a lot of the children that were being interviewed, they were of age of where they could remember. They can describe what's going on. So some of the children wanted to leave because of the bombings, just the sound over their head was a lot of trauma for them. They didn't mind being adopted by a Russian family, because of course immediately the Russian family would give them a lot of great gifts, you know, toys, phones, games, you name it. They would give it to them just to make them feel better. So some of the kids wanted to do that, to be Russians, and then other kids said, like, no way, Ukraine is our motherland. We are not going to be changing sides here. So they're sent to, and they actually call these re-education camps. And the kids talk about it on the video. They're telling the people that they make us watch World War II movies. Like, it's all about Russia, Mother Russia land. You know, they're trying to brainwash them. And they're also giving them weapons, just trying to get them into the military mindset. Like, this is serious, this is warfare. You can choose later, actually, who you want to fight fight for, but you are going to fight for somebody. Here's the weapon. There's something else, but it was just, oh, and then of course there's also where they're taking the children to the hospitals and the orphanages. They're separating the children. They show buses and buses and buses loads full of children, and they just separate them along the way. But it's the children who are being used again, like in the 80s, right, with me, and then it hasn't changed. It's the children who they want, who they're using.
So, you know, any war situation, any natural disaster, we're hearing this again, you know, when we look at Haiti and places like that, that is now well known, the borders, you know, where kids get separated, that this is where child trafficking and stuff occurs. We've been hearing, or I've been hearing anyway, for quite a while, that a big part of this Russian-Ukrainian conflict has had to do with the tunnels in the Ukraine, trafficking, child transportation, shall we call it that? I don't want to say too much on here. That sort of stuff. So what we're hearing is that a lot of that is occurring. Now, according to what you understand and what you know, how true is that? That in fact, that's what the Ukrainians are hiding? Because what we're hearing as well is that there's a huge amount of Nazis that have actually settled in the Ukraine. So there's a lot of that going on, child trafficking, that sort of stuff. I'm just trying to understand what your take on that is.
Whether it's a planned thing. Is that what you're wondering? Oh, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering, you know, according to what you understand, because this is the stories that we're hearing that are going on there, you know. So everything is planned, I think. I'm just wondering what you know, what your take on that is. Do you believe that's happening? Do you think it's happening? Do you have proof it's happening? I'm just wondering.
The only proof that I have is what God has shown me in the spirit. And then, yeah, of course, the different stories. And I've listened to many stories that, yeah, indeed, it is happening. I know prior to war breaking out, they go down to the map image. So I came from an area, I was, like I said, back then it was all USSR. It didn't matter whether it was Ukraine, right, Russia, Moldova, Ukraine, yeah, go, yeah, to that right there. All right, so my mom is from Odessa, which is way south in Ukraine, and now my sister was born there. I was born in Transnistria. At that time it was Moldova, and then they broke away from Moldova. In '92, there was civil war, but at that time, I mean, that area actually has Russian soldiers for years. They store a lot of weapons there. That area, that Transnistria area, the red, it's a sliver. You can spit across it. It's so tiny. And Russians have been storing chemicals there. Russians have been storing weapons there, and have had well over 1,000 soldiers stationed there at all times. And that little sliver of land is still communist. So they're not. The UN actually does not recognize them as a country. And this is what it's going to be coming up now in this war, because Russians are there. So now they've got Russians on both sides of Ukraine, right there. But that's where the hospital was. That's where I was programmed. So going back to me talking about this region, before the war broke out, I know there was 2 to 3 places. I know a family who started, it's kind of like an orphanage, because in Moldova at that time, after the war, it became third world country, and they used children for trafficking. So if they were not in an orphanage, they were just taken out. And even in orphanages that they do have, that as soon as the child turns 16, they are kicked out of that orphanage, and there will be a line of cars waiting to pick up that child, whether it was a boy or a girl. They didn't care. and they would be taken out. So that region is number one, from what I understand from the family that was talking about it. It's the number one in the world for trafficking white people, white children. It's
Wow.
that region. And I know that the Russians use them almost like slaves, almost like just, they don't treat them well at all. They don't see that people who are from that region. And in that region, you have everybody, Moldavians, Bulgarians, lots and lots of Russians, and then also people who have Turkish blood in them, and then the Romanian and Bulgarian. It's just a mixing bowl there. But it's a sliver of land between Moldova and Transnistria and Ukraine where it's just a lot of bloodshed. It's just a mixing bowl. But a lot of children are used.
I mean, if I understand there's obviously something going on there physically, right? There's obviously, as you say, trafficking or weapons or something going on there. So what do you think specifically, and I'm talking more spiritually now, would that piece of land, that slither of land, why is it of such high value to them? If there's a lot of fighting going on there, what is it they're fighting about? What do they want? What's so special about that land?
And again, this goes back to years ago when I read, I used to want to be an archaeologist at one point. Every mile or so, the government has protected that land, called it out, or put it aside as it's good enough for the archaeologists to dig up, and whatever they dig up in the future, for it to be that country's property, that country's goods. There's a lot of mounds there. There's a lot of ancient stuff that has happened there. They just have not had the money to dig it all up. But it's something, it's very, very ancient. I know that there's also, I've read this, it's the longest tunnel covered, it's lime. There's a lot of lime there, soil-wise. The longest wine, where they store the wine cellar in the world. Even the president from France came out to be in that cellar, in that tunnel, just to be there. The longest tunnel. There's something ancient there, some ancient, and
Yeah.
when I was disconnecting myself off from the various demonic spirits, principalities, God kept on saying and showing me that there were tunnels in the water, spiritual tunnels, if you will, black, going from the Mediterranean Sea through the Mara Sea, the little one, and then through the Black Sea. And there's a lot of rivers that are going from the Black Sea. So all of them are just going and then up into Russia. It was just an avenue for them, a highway, but it was all underwater. He did show me that.
You know, when we start investigating the history and then we start looking at Tartaria, okay, so then we start understanding, you know, like after the mud floods and stuff like that, that whole Russian-Ukrainian area, very important for that. So it wouldn't surprise me if there are some ancient artifacts or something there that they are protecting, wanting, because really at the end of the day, it's all, this is what they're looking for. They're looking for these ancient things, these ancient artifacts that are residual, I do believe, from the mud floods still, that have certain, that still harness certain energies, certain powers. And then all these things are what they need. They need to gather these things to give rise to whatever it is they want to give rise to. You know, and it just makes it, I'm interested specifically because that for some reason has got me questioning. And that's really just coming from a very intuitive place. So it's interesting. I'd be very interested to know.
You're right. One of the times, it's another story, but he showed me because this is on the foothills of Carpathian Mountains, which if you're looking on the map, it would be towards like into Romania over there. But when he showed me the Carpathian Mountains, it was looking at the map, Jesus just outlined it for me like a big old dragon. And then I remember coming across a video where Prince Charles was saying that it was his Mecca to go where Vlad the Impaler was. Like there's a lot of dragon stuff that has been happening there, and of course the blood.
Yeah.
So this is Moldova, Ukraine, Romania. It's on the foothills of that. So I think it's just a merging place from whatever's coming from down south, from the Greeks, and then up north there, and then you've got the stuff from up north. And then a lot of Scythians are there. And again, that's from Greece. And I think that just Russia, at one point I read that it was the cradle, the beginning for everything, and then it just spread out. The Scythians spread out into Russia.
Yeah. It's very interesting. It's and obviously there's a strong energy portal there, right?
Yeah.
There has to be, otherwise those sort of shenanigans wouldn't be going on there. So there's obviously something going on there. But you know, and I just have this question as well for you, just from where you're coming from. You know, when you look at we understand. I mean, they're far from innocent as far as anything's concerned. I just know them here in South Africa as well over the past years on their communist propaganda. But when it comes to the Ukraine and what is actually going on, and what's his name, the president or prime minister? Sorry, Zelensky. Yes, Zelensky. What do you think his role in all of this is?
I have to kind of, let me answer it a different way. When I was praying one of the times before, as the war was starting, I was praying for both Russia and Ukraine. God said specifically pray for the children, but he also showed me how it is in this, I want to say in real life. He showed me Russia as the house, as the brick red house, and then Ukraine was the front yard of that house. Like it was together. The land was together.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I believe. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's truly what I believe. They are all in it together. And the more I go into this, the more I intuit it, the more I sit with it, and the more I just speak to one or two people in the know, something that they say will activate and open up something in me that gives me a very clear understanding, because this is not Russia and America and China, whatever, all fighting against each other. They all want to be boss. Each one of them wants to be boss of the world. They are actually fighting to be boss of this whole Luciferian system. So I, at this point, believe that the front runners would be Russia, China, America. They are all fighting. I mean, the whole Antichrist movement, it's a movement, okay? But somebody has to obviously, an individual takes the role as king or head of the movement and has that title. But it's an entire movement that has swept the world in that direction. So this whole Ukrainian Russia thing and who takes this and who, it is disgusting what these evil ones have done, because they really are, in my opinion, they are all in it together. They're all full of crap. They all sit behind their gilded cages and concoct these atrocities on humanity and then create this game of divide and conquer. And this is really, when we're looking in the spiritual realms, and remember, it's also what Jesse was saying the other day, you know, we are taught to blind our eyes. And when you go into these military programs, there is no blinding of your eyes anymore. So people like myself and the general public, we've been blinded to these things for such a long time. Behind the scenes, they know what's going on. These guys know what's going on. It's time for us to wake up, wakey, wakey. Yeah.
Yeah. So, right, talking about the countries, the Western countries who are getting in on the action. They want to get in the action. like I said, I showed the picture, right, where all of them are together there trying to help Ukraine. But also in that same vision where I saw the house, Ukraine front yard, it did have a white picket small fence, but I saw the Western countries putting not fire things, like fire starters on the Ukraine in the front yard of the Ukraine, and then they were putting toy soldiers on there too. Like they're bringing forth their soldiers, and they want to start not fires, but just stir the pot, if you will.
Yeah,
Coals. That's what they were. They were putting coals on the Ukrainian, the front yard, Ukraine, coals to get things stirred up. Just and I think that Russia personally is getting, as Americans would say, brownie points for ushering the Antichrist in. I mean, they're making a hash out of the whole world, right? The economy is going to go kaput pretty soon, and they've got their hand on it pretty deep. It just, they're making things ugly for the world with this with the war.
But then that would really say that Zelensky is a willing puppet. You know, I mean, when you look at who's supporting him as well, he's a willing puppet. You know, he's willingly going in there and playing the role of this jokester in his high heels and leather pants.
There was one time, I don't know, I think it was the Holy Spirit who kind of prompted me to do this. He had me pull up different images of monuments and sculptures in Odessa, because, you know, from that area. And the ones that they put up, new ones. So some of them were like Darth Vader's modern soldiers. They're not even human soldiers. And then they had another statue of a child, big, beefy child in this ball. So I think they're going to be manipulating. If they get rid of their soldiers, in my opinion, kill a lot of people off, they can use this as an excuse, whether Ukrainians or the Russians, whoever. Hey, it's time for us to roll out these super soldiers. Yeah. Because we just don't have enough weapons. All the old weapons are going to be used up, and we don't have enough soldiers' bodies. So here we go, our new army. And then the children, the way they were manipulating children, you know, going back to almost 40 years with me, like, this is a perfect platform that they're creating to roll out those new hybrid soldiers.
Wow.
I think they will be coming up. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit scary. Let's hope something happens before that happens. But yeah, I just think it's really it's amazing. You know, the more we see what's unfolding before our eyes, it's actually just getting more and more incredible every day, right? The stuff that's coming out. But anyway, let's see. Yeah. So is there anything else? Was given the highest rank. There's just someone here. I want to just actually check if you don't mind, I want to just see what's happening in the comments here and see if
Hey, Thea, can you go down to the ones with the implants, please?
Yeah, Miss Fiji, even in the Pacific Islands where I actually come from in Malaysia, and that's true. Girls with the new... in Germany are a new Amazon Prime Season 1, The Gift, to Gaia about girls with a new organ causing them electrical forces. Wow.
Yeah.
I made a screenshot where an artist in this movie cuts his arm into slices to be eaten. Oh my gosh. So they start in MKVs to bring this cannibalism to the public. Yeah, wow. Look at that. Already that would be exactly the grooming, right? Yeah. And it's exactly that as well, because firstly with this transgenderism, the sexualization of our kids, now cannibalism. I mean, if you're looking at these video games, they're grooming the kids into bestiality. So it's insane. I heard the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, was given the highest rank, or do they call it the White Eagle? So what does that mean? Why was he given the White Eagle, actually, Zelensky? For what?
I don't know. Usually, at least back in the USSR, it was the white dove that signified peace. Peace.
Okay.
Maybe the white eagle, because the eagle has the sharpness, the eyesight, far eyesight. There's something about. No, I'm not gonna say it. Not sure. We'll go with that.
Okay, well, this is interesting. You know, if he's now been awarded by these people, and we all know what they're about, so clearly he's a puppet in the game. And as you say, there's actually no separation. They're all in it together. You know, it's like the secret societies, right? There are so many of them, but really at the end of the day, there's one, and everything is branched off the one main one. So I think it's really just to confuse as well. So, okay, what else are you wanting to tell me? What is this here?
Go down, Thea, go down one or two. I'm going to show you guys we're talking about the children, right? And the future soldiers. Keep going, go down. Go down to the implants. So they've created right there. If you can read, it's dissolving brain implants. It's an article, right? Fairly new. That's how little it is. They've got smaller ones, and they will make them out of like magnesium vitamins that we'll take, right? It's a capsule, so they'll just flatten it and make it into a little implant, and they can control how soon they want it to dissolve in your head. So when I was talking about right there, an implant that they put in the base of my head, and it activated again during the war. When the war began, they just wanted their people, like the super soldiers, not the super soldiers, the sleeper soldiers. I'm just trying to show you that the implants are real. And this was, for me, it was almost 40 years ago. In order for them to come out to show people the implants like this, that means they've already have perfected it in people or children like us before they put it out on the market where they can start making money. So I'm just telling you, like, this is old news. The implants and us, you never know when they put an implant into you. Even when they give you a shot, like they're so tiny, so minute. And from the other survivors that I've heard who have also had implants, they did manage to take them out. And as soon as they held them on their hand, it started dissolving as soon as it hit the air. Like some of them were able to capture it on a picture, and they were like just little hairs, just wires, so thin, tiny. It's like normal. And of course, it stimulates, different parts of your brain. Like I read at one point, the right lobe down here below made you forget about some things, where they could control what you're remembering, what you're not remembering, how to aggravate you, trigger you. Like it's real. So
that just to go back to what you were previously saying as well. So they would program you obviously with their implants, and then they're actually watching you. They're checking you via like their computer system all throughout your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
that's the heart attacks that I had. Yeah. The heart attacks came up every time I moved. That's when I'd have the heart attack. Like 4. It got so bad to where I did go to the doctor. Like they couldn't find anything. It was unexplainable. I'm like, but when I read the symptoms of a heart attack, it's exactly what I've experienced, but I was young and yet it was happening to me. But yeah, after I started listening to other survivors, I'm like, yeah, okay. It's real.
Makes sense. Why would you get the heart attack every time you moved though? What was the trigger with moving?
I think because of the location, they have their coordinates right where I'm at, the vicinity that I move around. So they have to update it all, get a new map of everything.
Wow. Yeah. So have you been able to deactivate it, get rid of it? Is it still in there? Do they still follow you? What's the story with that now?
I do believe in miracles, God's creative miracles. The first time, I'm now up to 2 years, came up to 2 years where I've been trying to, on this healing journey. And for many, many months as I was going through it, studying, understanding what's happening, cutting myself off of it, it was itching really, really bad and just flaking my skin. And I never thought about anything about that spot until that point. And then it stopped finally. I'm like, and I was in a better place mentally. I thought I'd cut myself off from everything, right? And then when the war started, it started itching really bad again. And oh yeah, and I did not ask the Lord to dissolve it. I did hear survivors having the implants. It did come across my mind, but I'm like, no, like, not me, come on. So I didn't ask him to dissolve it. But after the war started, like within third or fourth week, it was happening for that long. And my mindset was so in such a bad place. There was no peace. And somebody called me, one of the gentlemen who used to help me with this healing process. He also sees in the spirit. He told me, like, you're under attack. I'm like, yes. And you've been under attack. He asked me for how long, 3-4 weeks. Like, that's how long the war has been going on, because they're trying to get their soldiers together, do almost like a roll call. Who's there? Who's going to be stepping up? And then at that point, that's like, okay, Lord, that's enough. Well, they do have me on tap. You will cut it off, melt it away. And I believe personally that it has been melted away. And remember, one of the times is when I had the ear reading. Again, I was testing to see like what I was connected to, and that too was also connected to this sleeper soldier program, and I got rid of that. So I'm very, very happy there. But going back to the training, well, I actually never talked about the trainings. Some of the trainings, they roll back up to the toroidal donut shape thing. So Jesse was showing that cross. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Just go both of them. Jesse was talking about the cross-like thing where the different principalities are, and then underneath there you got the smaller unclean spirits that are under them. So same thing with the toroidal. I specifically remember where they attached this donut shape like thing they locked it in over my waist, and it was lined with the leather, brown leather, so it would not get burn marks. But on there, like I said, whatever bloodshed Russia has spilled, it offered it to the principalities in order to trade their power, where Russia could use their powers with their soldiers, whomever, but they would attach it to these toroidal donuts, circles. So you can see the green, the blue, right? So you would have the principality, and you would have the smaller ones underneath them. And when they're putting you through testing or training, the way you react with your mind to react to their exam training that you had to do, they would attach a number, they would grade you, and they would put a number, like how much of that principality or that evil unclean spirit you are tapping into. And that's how they would write that code. So for every they could be used, for different missions according to how you lined up or worked well together with those evil spirits. And it's kind of like that. So, yep, that was around my waist, and that was one of the prayers. There was 2 or 3 people praying over me, and I kept telling them, almost yelling, like, get this thing out of me. Just, I can't stand it. But that was a breakthrough when that came off of me. So that's, and then you saw hold on. So this image with a person, right, and this grid around them, this is your electrical field that's going around just from your heart alone. Your heart is just one big, strong magnet, and that's what you need for all this, right? And they're tapping into those almost meridians that your body has, and that's how the demonic evil spirits flow. And they also flow through your different organs. Like I said, they've attached the heavier ones to my liver, and it was the Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven. Like, she was vicious. So, and then the electrodes that I showed on another image, that they put into different areas. And again, it's going to the meridian system, and then of course the Kabbalah tree, right? The different spots. and yeah, your electrical power is coming out of your heart. So they did that with, oh, and then there was another one where I hated this one. They brought me into this large bathroom. Yeah, just, that's fine right there. Yeah, it's just showing you the different fields, right, that you keep getting around your body, through the body, how it all runs. So the one training, it's not training. Oh, this was breaking down, programming. I don't know how to call it. So they brought me into this bathroom, again, tile all over, drain holes on the floor. And there was a jacuzzi, big jacuzzi tub like in the corner. And it was filled with about a dozen snakes in there. And there was a board at an angle like this into the tub. And I knew immediately that, because I was pulling away and I was crying and screaming, like I knew I was going to go down there into that tub with those snakes. But what they did was they put you like this, head into the tub. There was barely any water in the tub. It was mainly just to keep the snakes in there. So when they put me on an angle like that, they put a towel, you know, a white towel over my head, and they did the waterboarding, which is almost a standard procedure for them, no matter what country you go to. And then with one of the snakes, that's when I was in that position, head down into the tub, that's when they raped me, and that's when they rape you, like I said, with the tail of the snake. I personally know another survivor who said the same thing. Again, it's just one of their rituals that they do. And then I heard another survivor on YouTube talking about the same ritual. You know, they'll wrap the snake around their wrist and then they'll rape you with the tail. And that's more for the sexual ones, to be attached to you, the demonic spirits. And then another one was they wrapped the snake around, again, I'm upside down. They wrapped it around my neck really, really tight, and then took the tail and they shoved it down my throat. And I asked the Lord, like, what is that? And he said, that's to keep you quiet. Because, you know, a lot of my jobs was to do the reconnaissance work for these avatars. So with the reconnaissance work, I wasn't supposed to talk about any of it. And that's what that snake being around my neck and then my throat, that's what that did, was to teach me, to get into my head, like, if you dare talking, like, this is what you're gonna get. But it was also spiritual demonic ones that were attached to me too at that time, at that point. And then of course, as I'm laying there with, you know, my head into the tub, I'm counting these snakes. I'm always keeping an eye on how many snakes and what they're doing in the tub. There was about a dozen of them, just keeping tabs on them. And that's to teach me to, like, always be aware that there's danger, and always keep a tap on everybody, what is going on, so they don't get onto you, come onto you. That was one of the, again, I don't know what to call it, breaking me down. And then after that, after those things, that's when the training began. And one of them was like the swing, right? And there was a small playground on the swing. When you're up high, they take a cardboard, and on the cardboard, there's a number written down. And so I'm way up high there. They'll put the card number on the ground, and I'm supposed to yell out the number, the correct number, right? I'm not seeing the number, but I'm supposed to yell out the correct one, and you get graded for that. Another similar one to that was two nurses. This was in the hospital. Two nurses were, you know, the game that children play with the two jump ropes. You have simultaneously the two jump ropes going around, and you're jumping in and out. So they're doing that, and while I'm jumping, another nurse throws, again, a number written on the cardboard. And, you know, if something falls into the jump ropes, you're going to fall, you're going to tingle yourself. So I'm supposed to jump out of the jump ropes while the number is coming down and yell out the correct number that is written on the cardboard. So here they're teaching you how to think, see in the spirit, clairvoyancy, while you're on the go. Like, it's danger, right? You're up high on a swing and you got to do it, say the correct number. You're going to tumble down and fall if you don't jump out and call out the correct number. So just like two things at the same time. And again, you're being marked for that. Another one was they go down to that merry-go-round at the bottom. Again, this was done on the playground. So they put me in the middle of it, and then they put a large brown envelope on the merry-go-round, and they start spinning me really, really, really hard, fast, right there. And see the little slots between the rails? So my job was to take out this brown envelope was full of white, smaller envelopes. And I was supposed to take it while I'm spinning really fast and getting very dizzy and sick to my stomach, put the white envelopes into each correct slot of those between the rails. And that's what I did, because next thing I know, I'm standing, the nurse or the instructor is holding my hand so I don't fall down because I'm so dizzy. And the thing is stopping, slowing down, and I've noticed that I've actually put an envelope into every slot perfectly. Like, how did I do that? I don't know. But again, it's just teaching you how to think and work on the go always. Another one was, there's a long call, and this one was to teach you how to use your mind as a weapon. So there's a long hallway, doors open, there's a boy standing there, blonde hair boy, and then at the end of the long hallway there's another boy. And what they told me was, or they told the boy, she gets a head start running, trying to get to the end of the hallway, and his job was to push me into the wall. And then my job was to look him straight in the eye and then get up while I'm looking him straight in the eye. That's all what they said. So I get the head start, he jumps easily, runs after me, and then throws me against the wall. And this kept happening over and over and over again. Like, I remember hitting my back real hard, my head, my shoulder, real hard. And by the time I got to the end, to the other boy, I was so angry because I had to look him in the eye every time I got up. Look him in the eye, get up, and there he goes again, whacks me right into the wall. And then at the end of the hallway, again, the instructor is grading us on how we did with this training. And when the boys turned to look at the instructor, I took their two heads and I whacked them real hard against each other with two heads, and then they plopped down on the floor because I did it so hard. So I got another grade. What happened was the training worked. I was supposed to get that anger out, that another evil spirit was supposed to come out of me and get enough force, because I'm 60 years old, right? How am I supposed to hit the two heads, the same age boys, against each other so hard to where they drop on the floor? And that came out of me. So again, I did pretty well there, but the test wasn't quite that. The test came the next time. So the following time, several days later, when they opened the door, this was another boy, but I knew what the game was. And I immediately looked at that boy. I looked him with my mind, with my eyes, straight at him. And I started telling him, like, there's no way you're going to be bullying me around like that, pushing me into the walls. And he just put his hands behind his back, and he just started scooting away from me until he bumped into the back wall. Like, I got him with the brain, with my head. I controlled him with my head not to do that to me again. So wow. I passed that one. Yeah, that one was interesting. Another one, this one was in a different area of the hospital. There were 3 rooms, and again, they're teaching us how to use our brain. So the first smaller room, there was five of us. Yeah. We were kind of put not quite across each other, but almost like a zigzag across each other. And the instructor put a white feather in front of us, just up into the air. And we were supposed to keep our hands down and not say anything, not breathe hard, not move our lips, but we were supposed to move that feather to each other, pass it on to each other with our mind. And then after we did that test, then the instructor put a red balloon in front of us. And again, we were supposed to move that balloon to each other with our mind. And then after that was over, we were locked in the locker, half of us were locked in the locker, and the instructor it's a very simple code, but they put like 1, 2, 3, 4, but different, 4, 7, 8. He gave us underneath the door, gave us the combination for that lock. And our job was to tell without opening our mouth, but mentally to dictate to the person on the outside how to unlock us, to dictate the code to them mentally so they could unlock us.
Telepathy. Yeah. Wow. So they're teaching all of these gifts. Yeah. Wow. That's insane. That's absolutely incredible. So it's like there are all these kids, or no longer kids, adults, around about your age. I think within a 10-year age difference, there's a lot of sleeper soldiers being activated right now. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yes. And I hope you guys ask the Lord and show you what has been done to you and who you are and how much Jesus loves you, that you will step out, like let him get you untangled from it all so you're free. Yeah, so the next one.
I just wanted to say that I think spiritual connection, spiritual alignment with God's will is absolutely the solution. Just speaking again from the last interview you did with Jesse, who specifically spoke about this, I specifically asked the question about how does one get rid of these implants, these cubes, these whatever it is. And really it's prayer and spiritual connection, faith, that's going to dissolve that, because they certainly ain't going to be doing it. Yeah.
Damn it, I'm so sick. I've forgiven them. Sorry. I've forgiven them. But they still just there's so many other children and they're doing so many worse things now because the technology is better. This is like what we had was old technology. Oh, speaking of technology, the next room that we walked, it was basically from one room to the next and to the next. So the next one was bigger. It was more of a classroom. In front of the room, it was just white everything, white walls, curtains, white floor, almost like shiny, just so clean. And then the middle of the room was set up like a classroom with small desks for less than a dozen. And then the back of the room had some kind of big, large equipment. Well, come to find out, they were putting, Jesse was talking about the light, right, that they're using, the different colors. So actually, I'm looking at the background of your screen, of your show, you've got that deep purple. So there was that deep, that neon kind of purple and then neon green color. And it was, actually, I have it on the, I got it there. But they were projecting it in waves like this over the entire room. And as they're projecting it in waves, like that. But just very, they were strong, but yet they were soft. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just waves and waves and waves coming at us all over the walls, floor, ceiling, everywhere. So we were, 5 of us, we were told to embrace ourselves, like shoulder to hand, hand to shoulder, like this. So made a circle. And then after they put those waves through the room in and out, we were told to sit down in the behind the desks and then start drawing each other's pictures. Again, telepathy. So whatever, I had in mind, somebody else was going to draw my picture, I draw their picture, and so on. So like mine was house, sun, swing, tree. Another one was a sailboat with the sun. Another one was galoshes with the ladybug. A boy did a rocket, and then another boy did a tank. So I know there was 5 of us. But afterwards, we started giggling like, oh, you missed this little detail here, or like you overdid it over here. So we did have to also learn how to work as a team and then work again. It's like read each other's minds, or the other way around, put ideas, dictate into their head.
What team were you forming there? What sort of team were you creating, and what were you going to be doing together?
Oh, I'll get to that in just a minute. So the next room, oh, and then afterwards, they were teaching us how to meditate, right? Because you also have to receive information, and then you have to know how to process it, and then you have to know how to, to whom you're going to dictate it to. So we were on our knees in front of the room, and again, with other different colors, but a lot of white. There was a lot of white color that just almost putting into us. On our knees, like I said, and we were wearing all white. There's something about white. I don't know. Jesse will have to explain that one, hopefully. But a couple of years ago, when, again, I was, cutting myself off from the different programs, the gentleman who was helping me, he said, like, I'm seeing that you were taught how to meditate. I'm like, yeah, I actually have that memory. And he's like, we need to cut it off because they taught you the evil way. I'm like, okay. I thought, like, anyway, if you're learning how to meditate, it's all good, but apparently it wasn't. So he cut me off and then said, like, now, Lord Jesus, Holy Spirit, you teach her how to meditate the right way. You teach her how the Spirit should flow through her. Like, it was just, removed.
Because everything they do is enhanced when they do that sort of stuff. Obviously, they emulate the natural human frequencies when it comes to everything, and then they enhance that, and that's when they abuse it. Someone's asking, did your parents agree to this? No, they didn't. If you watch the previous interview, she explains that her parents were not involved, just so that you know. Actually,
no, they were not. They did come to visit me, especially my dad, every day, because my mom had a couple of their kids. He told me that I would sob and sob every time he came to visit me. And when the nurse was coming down the hallway, I would pull myself together, stop crying. And then as soon as the nurse walked by, I began weeping again. And then he goes, honey, I think we stole you out of the hospital. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I remember coming there with your grandpa, with his father. Grandpa was behind the wheel, and he told the nurses that he was going to take me to the playground. This was, again, after 2 weeks. I was there. And then instead of just taking me to the playground, he walked me right to the car, and my grandpa drove me off. Like, I had no idea. My dad just remembered this. Like, can you imagine how much worse they would have done to me? I was only there for 2 weeks, and they did this much. It's like, wow. I do want you people to think, like, there are children who are in worse situations than me, that more things have been attached to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they stole me out of there.
Well, good for them. I'm very, very happy that they did. As you say, after 2 weeks, wow, that's insane. Yeah. And it's really so interesting. But I'm gonna call it a day.
So, hold on. Mm-hmm. Okay. Can I tell, like, 2 more things?
Yeah.
Real quick. So the other room, the next room, was they put a bunch of gauze into our mouth, and they put the red and the orange colors in there. So much, the frequencies were so strong that it would actually kill us, and they took us out on a bed and then revive us later. But I'm just going off of what Jesse was saying, just adding to it, the colors, the way they use, and the red and the orange, the danger, the warning, the lust, like, all of that was there. The orange, the red. But you asked how they would use us later with the teamwork that they've taught us. One of the memories that I got was I was on a ship. They fished us out. There were 2 teams, teams of 3s. And they fished us out of the water. They put us on the deck of the ship. And yeah, those are the colors, what they mean. On the deck, and I remember laying there on the deck, and they pull out of my right foot this long strip, almost like a vein or a strip of something. They pulled out all the information that avatar gathered while being under the water. They programmed that avatar. They got stuff on my head, and then I broke my left arm in the process, so they put some steel rods in there into this avatar. But what the job was of these 6 of us, avatars. There was a submarine under the water. I don't remember what ocean we were in. I don't know. But our job was to collect information from that submarine. And we had to put all of us, our hands onto the submarine at the same time. Because if one of us had put, our hands to collect the information of that submarine, to feel the frequencies, right? The people on board would know that something is wrong in the field of their submarine. Like there's too much frequencies, or frequencies are being taken out. Something is in the force field wrong here. But if we all put our hands at the same time on that submarine, then it wouldn't be so noticeable for the captain, whoever is working the submarine. So that's how we work as a team. Collect the information, fish us out, pull information out of us, and reprogram us. And these were avatars, like I said, different avatars were made for different missions. I counted 21 of them, and then 3 clones. So this particular avatars actually look like us, like fully human. They looked fully human. Because if you think they're going to be underwater, they would make more like the other avatar that I was talking about, more, functional underwater. But no, not these ones were just like human looking, because they were working with military closely. They were actually using military ships to fish us out for these different assignments. So we had to look, not to scare them. Those avatars had to look fully human.
Wow. So for how many missions could they use an avatar?
I don't know, because they can
yeah,
I want to say forever, because if you know technology and understand how they create the bodies, the humanoids, whether it's a total like a robot or a humanoid, or more like what Jesse was talking about, the sharks, right? Where they're changing the sharks a little bit. They're manipulating the sharks, their nature. Yeah. They can also do the same thing with the bodies, whether it's a human body or the thing is it's about those codes. Like I said, the numbers that they've assigned to the different, my spiritual gifts, and then how I was reacting to the principalities and the unclean spirits, right? How I was working together with them. I think that's the thing that mattered to them the most. The avatar didn't really matter. They can always update their avatar along with the technology that's being better. So those avatars can still be out there, except for I've been collecting them through this last 2 years, my essence back, right? I've been asking Lord, like, hey, take my essence, take it back to heaven, or add it to my soul.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Wow.
They can keep on using those different avatars, replacing them.
And especially because I think, if I remember correctly, in the first conversation we had, you said something about a nail or a hair or something. They can create an avatar just from that little bit of DNA from you as the host. So they already have that. And I would imagine then they can keep creating more. Mm-hmm. So if one guy's off, they can create more.
Yeah, right. So it was my essence that would activate it. And God actually still let me see number 50. I mentioned a Terminator who was full of acid, like a disposable. So this one was put out, it was number 50, and it was put out in Las Vegas. They hid her in a closet, waited. It was a female, a wealthy female that came into the room, and I was supposed to wait. Not me looking avatar, Terminator, was supposed to wait for her to get in the shower. And then once she got in the shower, then me looking avatar came in and started biting her. And as soon as she got into her, then the teeth would open up and acid would start coming out of the teeth and right into the person. And then the more chunks, bites this avatar took of her, the faster she dissolved. And when somebody's trying to, came back to the room, there was nothing of her left. But
wow. That's insane.
He did show me some more of the technology that went into that. So when people buy the avatar, they get the little hair of mine, right, to activate it. to get some of my spiritual gifts, mingle with the evil spirits, right? That's the code. They get the code that's already in this Terminator. They get my little piece of hair, and then they also get this plaster, like very thin rectangle, clear. And their job is to follow that, whoever they're trying to take out, whoever bought this avatar and they want this person out, right? They have to follow them for a while to collect their frequencies, their data, so the avatar recognizes all the information goes on this little plaster. Their heat, the frequencies, okay? It's collected on here, and then when they are ready to, people who purchase that Terminator, whenever they're ready to activate it, they will slap that plaster right here, and then this avatar knows exactly who to go after. They know the signature of that person, the frequencies.
Yeah,
there's just technology that has been used again for almost 4 years. Technology has been used, but we can't acknowledge it, like that it's real, but it's real.
Look, I mean, it just you get these little hologram stickers, right? And I was actually reading up on them. I mean, this is just how fascinating it is. It's like and what you do is you imprint those little stickers with the frequency. And obviously this is now for health purposes, and you can put it on your water and stuff like that. So because what it does is apparently the frequency is contained within the hologram. And then if you take that sticker, it's a little sticker, stick it on your water bottle or your clothes or your bedding or whatever, it then sends out the frequency that makes you feel better, right? This is what they're doing with just normal mainstream stuff you can buy in the shop now. So imagine how many nefarious opportunities can be taken with stuff like that. But anyway, I'm loving this conversation, but I do need to cut it short. So but we will have you back again. So I think there's always a lot to digest in these conversations. It's a lot to process. And it's honestly, guys, knowledge is power. So the more we know, the less power we give these creatures. I don't know what else to call them.
Like that.
Creatures of the night. Yeah, creatures of the night. So the more, the more ignorant we are, the more we choose to ignore, the more we choose to run away from this type of information and these realities. We literally are we are part of the force that is just being swept off to do whatever the hell these dudes think they can do. Anyway, Lira, it's been amazing chatting to you again. Thank you so much for joining me again this evening or this morning for you. I hope you have a beautiful Friday and enjoy eating lots and lots and lots of Easter eggs. Lots. So is there anything else you would like to just end off with, say, before we say goodbye to our guests?
No, I'll do a little prayer, just a short one.
Yeah.
All right. Lord Jesus, again, I thank you that you're freeing us at this time. This is our season to come into your freedom, Lord. I ask you to open our eyes, our amygdala, Lord Jesus. Open our brain. Help us to remember everything. Holy Spirit, just be upon us. Let the 7 spirits be upon all the survivors so they're coming up to this freedom, Lord. The Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of wisdom, knowledge, understanding, counsel, might, and the Spirit of fear of the Lord. Let it be upon us, Lord. Send out, release your ministering angels to all of us, Lord. We thank you for this freedom. We thank you for the power of your resurrection. May your name be blessed forever and ever, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, because I couldn't have been here if it wasn't for Jesus. Just
absolutely
happy.
It's so good to be chatting to you, Lira. Thank you. And thank you guys for joining us again on this beautiful Friday. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy your families, enjoy your break, just enjoy some downtime, and Yeah. We know by now, as I said at the beginning of the show, this is not an easy time for a lot of people at this time of year with all these dodgy things going on right now. So let's just say a prayer for everyone, all the kids, all the parents, everyone involved that is against their will. God bless you all. Mwah. Take good care of yourselves, and we see you on Monday again. Thank you, everybody. Fantastic weekend.